So we have our documents in the database. The ones that we want to be imaged have been imaged, and we are going to export out all this metadata and the images and the native files so that they can be imported into a program like Relativity or Concordance or Summation, or you choose. So while we were at the binoculars, which was our database query, this returns all of our records. We've batch processed and TIFFed those images, and now we're going to use the export utility. The first thing that we're going to do is make sure that we select the concordance, and not the concordance DCB, but the actual concordance. Once we select this, we're going to configure. Make sure that it's 20, 254, 174. These are the defaults of concordance, and consequently also Relativity, which uses the same one. Make sure that it's a relevant path and not a UNC path or a hard path. The reason that we do this is, one, you don't want to show the other side what your server configuration is, and it's not going to work anyways. So unless they give you specifically what it should be, always use a relative path. If there is foreign language, you should use Unicode. If not, Western is fine. Enable support for Concordance Native Viewer is an absolute must. And include field names as a first record. This is also a big must for a number of different reasons. One, if you don't have this up at the top, it makes it really difficult to match it up to the fields when you're importing. Also, it's easy to get them confused. So for example, date sent and date received, or date created, date modified, if you don't have the field headings, it's very difficult to know which field is which. Include document OCR text as a field in the load file. You do not usually want to do this. It puts it right into the DAT file. But the problem with that is that it gets big really quick and it becomes very messy. So I typically like to export out a text field, or I'm sorry, a text document that is associated with that specific record. Okay. We're going to include natives, we're going to include images, and include full text. So once this is done, we're going to make sure that it's all 119 documents that we processed. And we're going to go to next, which will be the fields. And we're going to select the documents that we want. The first document, or the first field, should always be doc ID. Make sure that that's set properly. And then from there, because these are hard copy, or I'm sorry, these are loose file documents, we're going to do things like author, file extension, file size, file type, file name, and the date information will be date last modified, date created. Okay. Let me see here, and then doc extension. Select next. These are our options. For the images, we're going to change this to doc ID. Make sure these are all the same. And for the exports, we're going to change this to our productions. You can name it whatever you want. And I'm going to make this volume 1. Okay. Once this is all done, make sure that your default format is TIFF. Output scale is fine. Image drive, don't worry about that. And then you should be good to go. So let's hit next. On file naming scheme is fine. On image tags is fine. At this time, usually I save this. And it's important because next time I want to do an export and I want to export the same information, I don't want to have to walk through and try and figure out what I did before. So I'm going to make this default Enron. We're going to hit finish, We have 318 gigs left, and I'm going to say yes. So as it exports those 119, you can see that there were 44 total pages, and that's only because we imaged, I believe, 31 documents. So that's kind of what it came out to. Let's look at the output folder. So it's saved in the Productions Volume 1, and if you look, so here we have the text document, which is the OCR for that document. Then we also have the native file. Okay. So for this one, you can see that here's the actual images, or the actual native file itself, followed by the text file of all the information, and then the individual pages for that document. Here's the DAT file. As you can see, the headers are up right across the top. For these last two, it has the native file location, and which is right here. And then for the second one, it has the OCR path, which is right there as well. Very important. And then here's the OPT file. Now this OPT file is going to have just the locations and the records of the documents that we imaged. Okay? So as you can see, 1, 2, 3, there is no 4 and 5 because those were Excel documents, and then it jumps to 6, 7, 8, 9. Anywhere. So the structure of an OPT file is 1, this is the doc ID. The second, after the comma, is going to be the volume. Then there's another comma. This is the file location. This is whether it's a document or not. This is whether it's a folder break or not. And this is if it's a box break or not. And this is the actual number of pages. So there you go. Now you have your export that you can give to opposing counsel, which is Volume 1.